King, keeps up the cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and joined as always with my co-host with the fattest stack of comics in the land, Rob Fat Stacks. How you doing, sir?
I'm Peachy Keen already then.
And before we get to our guests of honor, little PSA, want to mention that the nominations for the 2023 Comic Book Community Awards are coming up in May. That's when they'll open. So get there, get your nominations in, and that's going to be at the cbcaawards.org, where you can cast your vote for your favorite YouTube content creators and shows like this show here, the 1011, or Rob's show, if he would like to quickly plug it, Only Slabs.
Only Slabs, sure. I don't even need to plug it. You plugged it for me. You know, Cole's going to be a guest on Only Slabs in the not too distant future.
And now, the only problem this year, Rob, is you and I are going to be in the same category.
Yeah, not a problem.
Oh, I know. That means I won't win this year. People like their slabby slabs. All right. Without further ado, the guest of the hour. We have the biggest porn stash in the land. We have Cole's Comic Claims. How's it going, Cole?
Hey, thank you for that introduction. I like it. And hey, maybe if I get like 70 more subscribers, Bearded and I will both be in there, and we can go head to head with you guys too in that category.
Right? Uh-oh.
Hey, all I know is it's not often that I'm in a stream with somebody whose mustache is almost as magnificent as my own.
Yeah, I mean, yours just curls. Mine's just classic.
That's right.
Mine's
That's
like
because mine lifts.
Yeah. Yours is like avocado toast, and I'm just like really good toast. You know, it's classic.
Like the classic villain stash with the curl, you know?
Yeah.
You just see him plotting and twisting it.
My thing is too, I also just like once I start eating my mustache with a sandwich, I just shave it. I don't know how to trim. It's just a problem that I have, I guess.
It is one of those things when you're eating like hot wings or, you know, trying to eat like a spoonful of yogurt or something. Yeah. And you got to go wash your mustache.
Yeah. Or like soup, when you sip on soup, it just kind of gets stuck in there and you're like, oh, I mean, not really stuck, but it just like sits there.
Nah, the worst I think is if you take a spoonful of peanut butter and you eat peanut butter, next thing you know, you're smelling peanut butter for the next hour. You're like, oh, I've already cleaned it like 3 times. How's this possible?
The 1011 mustache edition, right?
That's
here,
right,
live, guys.
We'll talk about beard oil next, and
right
mustache
I know
wax.
Nothing about that. I've been trying to get a beard my entire life.
Oh man, you got to get that. It helps even with your mustache. So the beard oil helps keep the dry skin underneath the mustache.
Well, I will try that out someday.
Cole, as I like to do with this show, real quick, all the people that are in the chat, they know who you are. But for those catching us on the rewind who are going to discover your channel for the first time, who is Cole? Who's he affiliated with, and what's your channel about, sir?
Yeah, so I'm Cole. I'm just a guy that likes random comics and weird stuff. I have my own channel called Cole's Comic Claim. It originally started because I was trying to sell comics on Instagram, and then I failed at doing that. So now I just have a channel. But I do a most anticipated comics usually every week where I have guests on. They talk about what they're looking forward to. I usually talk about what's coming out the next week in comics. And I occasionally do an unboxing here and there. But I also started from a channel called Comic Burrito. We don't do as much as we used to, but we're still technically a thing. So
you were on a break.
Yeah, so my son, that was the biggest thing. When my son was born, it was really hard to do live streams constantly all the time because my wife and I were doing like a shared sleep schedule. And by shared, like she'd usually like, here, you get 4 hours of dedicated sleep, 4 to 6. I get 4 to 6 hours of dedicated sleep. And that way, we both get enough sleep to function, when my son was born, so that we didn't have to I'm the kind of person that if I'm asleep, I'm not waking up. So
right. Not me. If I have 4 hours of sleep, I'm good to go for the whole day. I'm ready.
So usually I'd stay up until like 1 or 2, depending on when I felt super tired. And then she'd switch to the couch and I'd go up in our bed. And that's usually how we did it for the first few months, so that, we at least got some sleep. And that made it really hard to live stream because I didn't really want to have a screaming baby in my arms as I'm doing this. And I'm sure that our guests would also not like that.
That's what duct tape's for.
There are rules against that now, Rob, unfortunately.
Well, you
say cover their mouth and nose.
All right, let's say hello to our illustrious chat here. We have, of course, Las Cruces first in, as always. Good evening, sir. We have White Tiger. Good evening, Ruben. How you doing, sir? We have Seth in here. Good evening, Seth. And we are going. Oh, I don't want to skip too far. We have Matt in here. Good evening, Matt. Comics by the Bay, Psychedelic Comics. Good to see you, sir. Adam, nice to see you. Collecting with Durs. Trev's in here. Good to see you, Trev. Thank you for stopping in. We have, if I can work this correctly, because I'm fumbling all over it. We have Polkan Joe in here. How you doing today, Joe? Who had a great episode today with Marcus from on Circumstances channel. If you guys haven't watched that, please go give that a watch with Pocan Joe. Great episode. Brian LCS in here. Good evening, sir. And we are filling up as we speak. And we have Warlord in here. Good evening, sir. Steve Hayner in here. Good evening, Steve. How you doing, sir? And the Jackson Roy Kirk, not to be confused with just Jackson Roy Kirk. And
I do get that confused.
in the community, and some of the best comments in the chat sometimes that are hilarious. And Gore Vidal, always good to see you, Gore. Thank you for stopping in, sir. And I think we are almost caught up with the chat here. And yeah, so Cole, Jerry the Jitterbug has popped in. Good evening, buddy. Nice to see you. And Cole, you were mentioning that this was a lot harder than you thought it was going to be. What was the roadblock that you ran into when you started to pick your 1 and 1?
Trying to get as many things as I felt like described me in my collecting. So what I tried to do now is that I also paired it with kind of like YouTube in a sense, and how like my collecting has changed too since YouTube. But I just wanted to, like, I guess, 10 books is, when you have, I don't know, I probably have 5,000 to 6,000 books. So 10 books is not that many books, right? And like, it's like I could have probably just showed you like 10 sketch covers that I thought were cool, but it's just like, I don't know, picking 10 books just seems so hard because there's like a lot of these books, right? And a lot of them, the one thing that was easy was figuring out which ones that I've talked about multiple times that I'm like, I can just like disregard this one completely because people have already heard this story before, because it's basically what I always bring up, right? So I tried to change it a little bit so that some of these books are going to be stuff that people probably haven't seen me talk about maybe before.
Give the people something new.
Yeah, and some of them, I cheated on a few where it's like, hey, this book technically tells 2 stories, but it's one singular book, so maybe you can't be mad at me for that.
I'm still waiting for the day, Gary, somebody comes in and says, no, it was really easy. What I did is I just went up to 10 different boxes, randomly grabbed any comic from within the box, and here we go. Let's go.
Well, I was telling Cole, when you guys reversed it and had me in the seat, I didn't have that too hard a time with it. So I was telling Cole, I had the advantage of, like, I'd only come back in 2019, so I had a good frame of the first 10 books I wanted to get when I got back into it. So that was pretty easy for me. But usually, like now, if I had to pick another 10, that's where I'd start getting the brain cramps. I was like, ooh, where do you go? But without further ado, why don't we get right into it, Cole, and see that first book?
All right. So this first book, he's not in the chat right now, but this one specifically is for Tyler from Whack Comics. Because when I first started collecting, this is like the first stage of collecting. I've told this story multiple times. My mom was like, hey, you don't read. You should probably read. So we'll get you some comic books. Maybe that will help. So I got a bunch of Ren and Stimpy books. But the other thing I started collecting as like a third grader was Dragon Ball Z comic books. And I have a few of these that are still in my collection from when I was a kid. I actually changed the bag and board to this one because it was pretty gross, because it has been in the same bag and board since I bought it when I was a third grader. But yeah, this is just kind of one of those books where of the 2 covers, I really like this. And also this is kind of weird because I feel like I've talked about this to people and they're like, that's manga, right? And I feel like every time I tell them that it's not, but it is. So it like opens up this way.
Right.
But it's weird because it doesn't go backwards forward. I don't know. Maybe I guess technically it is, but it's a comic. So I've never actually seen a just singular comic like this. But
so is that like your first comic, or?
The first comics that I bought was like Ren and Stimpy. I want to say it's like 6. It's like a black and white cover with Ren as a detective. I got the one with Spider-Man and Powder Toast Man. And then I got this in another issue of Dragon Ball, which was weird too, because I bought them off the shelf, but I have like issue 2 and issue 5. But I was, a third grader.
What is a Dragon Ball?
It's essentially you get 7 of them and you can make a wish. Usually the wish is to bring back their friend that died. I'm assuming that you kind of already knew the answer. Maybe you didn't. But yeah, it's an animation or a Japanimation. It was a show I really liked as a kid, and that's kind of what I collected as a kid, right?
Which is
A lot of
dangerous because I'm sure dragons don't want to part with their balls.
they don't, but technically these ones aren't like from real dragons. I think I don't know. It's been a really long time. I tried to rewatch Dragon Ball Z, but that's like the only one that's not on Hulu.
And you got Seth saying that he has fallen in love with you. He is a DBZ fan for life, and now he's going to get a tattoo of that mustache on him.
Love it, dude. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, this is just something, I haven't really shown these off. I probably have. So we did one of our bearded and Cole's cover challenge was vehicles, and I used this for the Nimbus Cloud because there was like this huge debate on Two Brothers a while ago is does this count as a vehicle? And technically, by definition, it does.
Right? He's riding it.
Yeah, exactly.
So then, never mind.
All right, good start.
As transportation, though, I think that there is an important word. You have to ride it for transportation.
Got it. Okay.
It's not a bouncy ride, Rob. All right, let's clean it up here. Number 2, Cole.
All right, so number 2, this is another book that deals with kind of a different stage of my collecting. So as I mentioned, it started first when I was like a third grader, just getting into it. So, this was after like I got my first real job. I was like, hey, I have money. I'm going to get some comics because I loved like I was playing Hero Clicks a lot, and I was like, I should get into these comics. And like, so there were some books that I specifically bought at that point in time that are pretty big books. One of them is like, what's the Clone Wars book with Ashoka. I bought that off the shelf because I was like, oh, they make Star Wars comic books? That's pretty cool. So I have a copy of that just from being a random dude that walked into a shop and bought that off the shelf. I bought some Batman at the time, and then it was about this was right before New 52, but I have like the first 12 issues of that from when I was doing it. But this was another book that I saw on the shelf, and it's World of Warcraft.
Oh, put that closer. That's a good cover.
This is a Jim Lee cover.
Nice.
So and you mentioned Clone Wars, the first Ahsoka, and you decided to show off World of Warcraft.
Yeah, because people have seen that book before, but how many people have seen this random variant of World of Warcraft 1 written by Walter Simonson? Probably not very many people, right? So, like, this was the thing. That was, and so they also, I liked Doom. Diablo was a big game, and there was a Diablo comic that I got too. So it's like, yeah, this is cool. I noticed when I was looking back. So one of the things I did to cheat is that I was using CLZ to figure out what books per time, sort of, and like figuring out which cover to use. And I noticed that all of these covers from World of Warcraft, I mean, it's on the WildStar imprint or whatever that was. And this, I don't know, I ripped it at some point. I think I spilled beer on it. It's a pretty bad condition comic book, but
no, I didn't know they made a Diablo comic. Like, I put way too many hours into Diablo. That game,
and it was DC that did that.
1 and 2 was so good. 3 I played a lot, but 1 and 2 I played until I just over and over and over again.
I have a friend that still plays Diablo 2. That's the only game that he's played. He's probably played a paladin like 170 times in that game. And it's like, don't you just get bored of that? And he's like, no, I love Deckard Cain. And I'm like, all right, cool.
See, I'm always the barbarian fighter.
Really? I'm shocked.
I know, right? It's a shocker. And then when I replay, I'm like, maybe I'll try a different person. Barbarian. Nice. Yeah. I like this. I like the difference. These are books I haven't seen from you before, so I'm enjoying it. All
yeah, right, and number 3. Yeah. So this is a book that is also in that same time period. I pulled off the shelf. This is a character that is now became fairly big because he was played by, some might say, the biggest actor currently, or at least most paid actor. And I knew nothing about this character. And apparently this is their first solo series, but it is Black Adam. Number 1, this is by Peter Tomasi, and I met Peter Tomasi earlier this year. He signed it. Once again, this is another just beat up copy because I knew nothing about comics or storing them, and I just had this, and I liked it because I was like, this is a cool cover, and I like DC because they have Batman. And it was funny when I brought this to Peter Tomasi to sign, he like looked through it, And he was like, "Do you care if I look through this? I don't even remember what this story is about, but I remember writing it, like, just because it's like that dude writes so much stuff for DC that he was like." And then he like was halfway through. He's like, "I think they asked me if they could use some of this for the movie. I don't know that they actually used any of this for the movie, but."
You
Do
could read it and
you
find out.
imagine having such a body of work and writing comics that you don't even remember some of the stories you've written anymore?
Well, and that's the thing. I feel like the weird thing about
Like,
Peter
what a
Tomasi,
career,
yeah, like the guy doesn't write any books that I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the best thing I ever have read in that category. But I don't think he has any like books that I'm like, you know what? I don't like that book.
You see, Gary, also, I think that sometimes you write these things, you don't necessarily see the final product necessarily always when, once it's put together and with the cover and everything else, you've just
right?
written a story. So,
It's
But
cool.
yeah,
All right,
he's written so many things. I mean, he created the Super Sons, I think, as like a team because they weren't really a thing before that. And like, I don't know, he's done so much stuff that it's like, I know that it was funny when he was at the Comic Con, they had a Q&A and people were asking him questions. And there's like certain questions where it's just like, oh yeah, I guess I did do that. Like, what was it like working with Jeff Johns throughout Brightest Day and Darkest Night? And he's like, you know, Green Lantern's pretty cool. That's not how he actually answered the question, but that's how I interpreted how he
yeah.
answered the question.
now what did you think of the the Black Adam movie?
It was all right.
Because I started watching it and I haven't finished it, and I started watching it 2 weeks ago, and I haven't felt the draw to go back yet.
Wow.
Like it was so that's the thing. I don't think I dislike any superhero movies.
I didn't dislike it, but it just really wasn't captivating me. I was expecting a lot from it too.
The end battle was the best part of it, probably. Like, I don't know, I was probably a little like preoccupied. I do have two small children running around my house as I like tried to watch it a little bit later, but probably in the beginning, my daughter was still up and was like, "Dad, what's this? Why isn't Spider-Gwen in this?"
Right? Well, I was like, after this show, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll finish Black Adam. I'm like, oh wait, no, I have to. I have a episode of The Last of Us to watch. That's what I'm doing before bed.
I mean, that's the hard thing too, is like there's so much stuff now. Like people are like, "Have you watched?"
There
Like,
is.
I love Sandman, and I'll probably love the Sandman show, but that's one of the few comic book shows I think my wife would also like. So it's like I can't just like watch it while I'm in the basement sorting
Wait a
comics.
second. You mean to tell me that with two kids, a job, balancing a YouTube content creation, you don't have time to watch every single streaming show out there, plus watch all the YouTube for all the channels that you subscribe to and sleep?
Right?
Oh, I gave up sleeping years ago.
Even still.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's like the hardest thing, right? Where it's like most DC stuff I try to go to, but yeah, I mean that one's all right, and it's on HBO Max, so I'll probably go back to it. I think a lot of people really loved it. I didn't love it, but it was fine.
I wasn't hating it. I was just like, oh, it just seemed like basic.
Look, it wasn't highbrow theater, but I thought it was a fun film, and I just took it. That was my thing. I just wanted to go to it and see some people beat the crap out of things, and man, I saw that. It delivered on that aspect. It was great for what I wanted out of it.
Yeah,
But I'm not expecting like, war and peace and the
I still might really like it, Rob. I'm just in the part where he's in the house with the family. I'm like, all right, this is just them.
character development, moving the subplot stuff. Yeah, yeah.
It's like, well, this is them making the bad guy the good guy, which I get. I get tired of that trope in the Marvel and DC hero movies where they, oh, this is the bad guy. Well, is he though?
No,
All right, number.
it's not so much that he just only cares about one particular thing, and then depending on where you're at in the movie, you may understand more once you progress. It kind of you go, oh,
I'm definitely gonna finish it. I just haven't got to it.
all right, well,
But all right, number 4, Cole.
and I'm assuming though, I'm just going to quick say this. You saw that in theaters, right, Rob?
yes,
I think if I saw it in theaters, I would have liked it a lot more. It's a movie that I think is easy to get out of if you're not 100% engaged. And that's,
yeah. I
think,
mean,
could
I've
be a
watched it
problem.
both in the movie theater and at home, and it was a little bit more immersive, obviously from the video side, on screen at the theater, but I do get immersed at home, but then again, I have a very large, expensive sound system because I
We
spent years working in audio. So,
we got Seth saying. I heard it this way. Black Adam is playing The Rock in that movie.
So this is a slab, and I'm sorry that I showed this slab out, but
No, you're
I think
fine.
this is mostly raw. But this is also it's cracked, as you can see here. It's got a little remark right here from Matt Kent and signed by him. But the reason that I'm showing this book off is because when my daughter was born in the hospital, I was reading Mind Management, and this is like the book that I associate with the birth of my daughter. And there's another channel out here on YouTube called Comic Book Poser. And when I had said the story, he had found this book and he just sent it to me as like a hey, I think that you would really like this. And I thought that was pretty cool. And this is
Wow.
definitely like one of those books that like hold a special part like in like my collection just because it reminds me of my daughter. I read it all in like the big books, right? That got the 5 or the 6 hardcovers, but like this is a cool little keepsake to that. And I mean, it's definitely a book that I don't know. I think that with CGC, and I mean, technically, since Rob's here, he can answer this question. I could just send this to them and
For a
they'll just
reholder.
reslab it, right? And I
Yeah, he
just
said
pay
it
them or
submitted as a
whatever.
reholder. It's like I think they might have raised the price, but it's like $15 or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
because I'll probably eventually just do that because I think this is too like an old case. Maybe I don't know. It looks
Yeah,
different than some of the
yeah,
other ones
just
that I
submit it
have.
for a reholder, easy peasy.
But yeah, that's like I love the story just because it also like it reminds me of her. Because that's what
Yeah.
we
So what
read
I'm
when she was
hearing
born.
is you're at the hospital with your wife. She's in labor and going through agonizing pain. Your child's was born, and you're reading a comic book.
Reading a comic and watching the Dota 2 Internationals.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Well,
Did you tell her
technically,
to
so
keep
she
it
was
down so you could focus on your reading?
yeah. So it was a
give her
very long
another
process.
girl. I'm trying to read a book here.
And there's also a lot of time in between those processes, right? So
And Gore's
definitely.
saying, mind management, if the Nolan brothers remade the Jason Bourne films.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's kind of like this espionage, secret society spy book that also takes like elements of like superhero, right? There's like one guy who's like loosely the Hulk, and that's kind of like his thing. He's just like crushes. There's these people called the Immortals. They just can't die. That's their power, right? So they can feel pain and they know pain, but they can't die, which is also kind of a terrible power,
That's
I
good because
think.
they would
But
have been terribly misnamed if they could die.
yeah.
Just kidding. All right, number 5, buddy.
Number 5. So this is gonna be I brought this here specifically to cause some like maybe slight heat because this book has definitely been shown on here a lot. And it is Batman. Issue number 24 from Tom King. So this has got a signature from Tom King and Clayman. But the reason I show this off is because I think in my most recent like time and pickup of reading comic books, this is like the first complete run, and it's 85 issues of a story that I collected every single issue for from start to finish. And that was like something super cool. And I remember meeting Tom King and like whether you like or dislike Tom King, that dude has been like his family's lives has been threatened because people didn't like the direction of comic books that he has taken. But he is still one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. Like if you've read Strange Adventure and there's that like panel of Adam Strange where he's like, "Hi, I'm Adam. It's nice to meet you." That's how Tom King was when I met him and got his signature. He was like, "Hey, I'm Tom King. Thank you for reading my comics. That's awesome that you would do that." And I was like, "Thank you for writing comics that I very enjoy." But it was just like this cool like meeting. It was the first like writer that I met that I like actually really liked everything that I had read from them at the time. So it's like
Including the
meeting him and just
endings.
see, huh?
Including the endings.
I like all of his books, really. What? Let me think.
Because I love how he starts off books
Oh yeah, I love
and
that. I do
into
too.
the
Yeah.
middles.
I mean,
But
there's
it's the finishing part, the close. He needs to call in a closer to finish up the eighth and ninth inning, I think,
but
because he's a little weak on the endings all of a sudden.
But he also would I mean, but name a comic book writer that is solid at endings.
I don't know, but I just know
Exactly.
that I read a lot of his books. I've seen a lot, read a lot of stories and the things that he's done with characters and stuff. It just drives me crazy. My God,
Yeah, I mean,
everyone's coming to my damn door right now.
I thought he ended Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow really strong. I thought that was strong all the way through.
solid. I like Mr. Miracle is one of my favorite comics of all time.
And I have
Ish-
his Strange. I have to read it. His Adam Strange. I
Adam
got all
Strange.
12 issues of that.
That one, that one was fine. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, like when it comes down to it, like even like you that's the thing I think we've talked. Like I know Bruce from Bruce and Stephanie, he's a huge fan of Mark Miller, and like he's always like, I can't believe you don't read Mark Miller stuff. And I was like, for the most part, I just trade weight a lot of it because he's like the classic guy that I think has some of the best ideas in comic books,
Right.
but he can never land the ending. like for me at least, and that's the thing. But his response back was, well, who can end a 6-issue story and make it 100% great? And it's like, that's a hard thing, right? There are comics that are good, that are 6 issues and tell a great story. Like, I mean, I guess do a power bomb, right? That's 7 issues. I was not upset with the ending of that. There was a book called Dead Dog's Bite that was like one of my favorite 4-arc minis. And yeah, I like it. But that's the thing. I think,
And, Greg
ending
Duggan
stories is
did it
hard.
with, or Dugan did it with the first Savage Avengers run, 38 issue run, and that was probably one of the best ending in comics I've ever read. Wrapped up so smartly, so intelligently. 38 issues, and when it ended, you felt complete. It was just great.
Well, maybe I'll check that out. I'm definitely thinking about I've gotten DC UI Ultra, and it's changed the way that I read comic books. And I'm kind of considering maybe going to Marvel Unlimited. The issue, though, is 3 months of away is a hard sell still, whereas 1 month is fine.
Right. It is tough, and you can only do so many different services before it all adds up to just being too much.
Right, yeah.
All right, number 6, sir.
So earlier I mentioned that I'm on another show called The Comic Burrito. It's technically the second interview, but the first interview that we did of a writer that wrote for at least a publisher that was well known was a guy named Jared Lujan, and he wrote a book called Dryfoot. So this is issue 1. He sent us issue 1 of it, signed by him, obviously, and he was promoting this book. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing. This was the first creator interview that we had, and we ended up getting the signed copy of the book. So that was a fun, enjoyable interview. And a cool
That's
guy. I mean,
cool. I never heard of that one.
Yeah, Jared has actually been doing some pretty big stuff. So he recently he's in the Milestone Initiative for DC, which is whatever they with the all the Milestone books that they do, but they start I don't know exactly what that means, but I know he just put out that he's doing a book for that. He just recently released a you know how Image does those anthology image books that have been coming out the last year and a half or whatever. He's going to be in one of those too. So he's a pretty up and coming dude, and he loves the Wu-Tang Clan. So if you're a fan of Wu-Tang Clan,
You're a hell of a promoter, Cole. He's a book guy doing some books here and there, and he's got some books coming out. Books.
Yeah.
Well, I like that he sent them a book that was signed by him.
It is. No,
well, it could be signed by the artist, right? Technically,
could be. That'd be funny. Hey, I'm going to send you this book signed by somebody else, but I won't sign it.
Right.
I wrote it, but I won't sign it.
I took it to work. We had a few people there sign it. Here you go.
The janitor signed it.
Now, how do you like doing the creator interviews, Cole? Do you enjoy those quite a bit?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. Some are fun, some are not as fun. It just kind of depends on the day. I mean, the hard thing about it is that at a point when we were doing them so regularly that we were doing them once a week, sometimes when you're bringing on bigger people, the issue is you feel almost sometimes like, am I expected to read their entire catalog before I talk to them, right? And then there's certain times where you start reading books that maybe you don't want to read a book, and you feel like it's homework, right? And you're doing homework for something that's your passion, where maybe it can't always be fun. And
well, I started. It's funny you said that, because I started that at first, and this is what we did for a couple of the Usual Suspects shows. But then you find out, what happens if you're having somebody on and you read a book and it didn't really hit a chord with you? You're having them on to promote them. You still feel obligated to say good things, but you didn't connect with the book in any way.
You can be neutral on something. Ask them questions about the process and everything else, and just not necessarily say that you enjoyed it. Say, well, or you can talk about the parts that you did think were interesting or that you enjoyed, but
And sometimes you just get a personality on where it's a bit dry. Luckily, I've had great personalities on, like Jason Douglas and stuff like that. People who come on and talk and are fun and engaging. But you get some people that it doesn't matter how big a name they are, that as soon as they get behind the camera, they're kind of like,
yeah, and
it freezes them.
It's funny you mentioned that because we've read books. You know, there were certain interviews that we had where people were super dry, but it was also like books that we loved and we thought were really well written. So it always seems weird because, right, you think that these writers should be like almost charismatic because they're telling these stories. They should be able to tell stories just in a sitting, right? And sometimes they can't. And that's kind of where it got, to the point where if you don't love a book, I think that's the hard thing with creator interviews because if you're continuously doing them. And that's the thing. We at that point, eventually we just did books for like books we actually liked. We just reach out to people like, you want to talk about this book? Nope. Okay, that's fine. Or most of the time, like they just don't respond. But whatever,
Right.
But that's the one thing I hate too, is because I prefer like Instagram when it comes to social media. And the hard thing is that a lot of creator types, unless they're artists, aren't as responsive on Instagram as they would be on like Twitter. Just because a lot more, I think creators use Twitter because it's probably better to push books than Instagram is.
Right, but I think Instagram. So I like using Instagram way better than Twitter.
Yeah, and I
I don't
agree.
know. I'm just not. I have a Twitter account. I'm just not the biggest fan of Twitter.
The hard thing with Twitter, it got a lot hard because that's the thing, right? You can make a post and the posts are based on text, right? And people are usually a lot easier to just be like, I don't agree with this statement, or to like really just go like deep into the weed of hate. Whereas, like, when it's a picture, usually it's like, I feel like people are less hateful towards pictures. I mean, and maybe there are, but I know that there's like, from what I've seen on Instagram, there's a lot less hate than there is on Twitter. And that's the reason that I like it. Because,
Especially if you hang out in the comic book section.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, I mean, there still
cool
are
corner.
people out there, right, that hate comic books. And I'm like, I get it, but like maybe comics aren't for you. If you can't go to a comic book store and find one book that is enjoyable for you, maybe you're buying the wrong books, or maybe you don't like comic books, and it is okay. But I think the hard thing for some people to realize too is that, like, while a book might not be for them, that doesn't necessarily make it bad.
Correct. And that's my biggest complaint about people criticizing things like because we live in a that sucks culture, right? What do you think of that? Oh, it sucks. No, it doesn't suck. You just didn't like it. It wasn't for you. It
Oh,
doesn't mean
maybe
it sucks.
it could
Now it
suck.
may suck, but it may just not. It just may still be a good movie.
Suck like a straw.
Yeah, because I'm like that with a lot of the A24 films. Like I just don't care for them, and I've watched them. I've given them a fair shot. I've just they don't connect with me hardly any of them at all.
Yeah,
And
no.
And that's the
Yeah,
stuff
you're
I'm
right.
watching, and I'm like, I love this stuff. This is great.
well, that what was the one with Florence Pugh where she joined the cult at the end? Summer or
Oh, Midsummer.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I
Well,
hated that
technically,
movie.
she didn't really join the cult, I don't think.
Yeah. But like
But
the
yeah,
whole movie, like from the very beginning, you knew it was going to happen, and everything was just like, oh my gosh, get to it, oh my gosh, get to it.
I loved that movie, but it also reminds me. So one of my favorite horror movies, and I don't even know if it's considered a horror movie, is the original Wicker Man, and that movie is so much like the
The original
original.
Wicker Man is fantastic.
Dude, it's so good. And I
It is.
weirdly, like the way that I found out about it, there was this game on Xbox. I forget what it was called. It was a zombie game. And you could like get Lego heads and put them on zombies, and then you're in a mall, and somebody was like, "What's the best soundtrack to listen to while playing this game?" And somebody put the Wicker Man soundtrack. So my coworkers downloaded the movie and had it on a work server, and I watched it, and I was like, "This is sweet." Also, I probably shouldn't have watched that at work.
No, the original one's great. I mean, it gives you that eerie feel throughout. They really know how to pull off the atmosphere and mood in that one. And the thing is too, but the whole time I was watching that one, because when I grew up, he was the Equalizer on TV, and I kept going, "Oh, it's the Equalizer." Of course, he doesn't equalize anything in that movie. It's
Yeah, yeah, definitely gets destroyed, and
yeah.
but like, yeah, I don't know. It's just such a good movie.
That's a
every time.
great flick, though. I can agree with you on the original Wicker Man.
So hey, maybe
All
I'm
right,
not
number
so different.
7.
All right, so
That was quite the tangent we went on.
all right, so this is
Oh, we're
like,
back.
We're back.
all right.
Oh, wake
so-
up again, Rob.
So to get back to Twitter, I randomly made a Twitter post. This is my Twitter post, and like it's not word for word, but I just made this was my post, and it was: Has anyone had bad luck on eBay with comic books? I bought an A cover. They sent me the B cover, and now they say they don't have the A cover. And somebody goes, "What book was it?" And I said, "Philadelphia, issue number 4." And then somebody was like, "That's a bummer." And then the writer of Philadelphia, there are no hashtags in this, no ats, goes, "Hey, let me know which cover you need. I'll send it to you." And included in
Wow.
that, he sent me this issue 1 that it says, "Thank you for the support, Rodney Barnes," and just mailed me some issues of Philadelphia
How
because I had
cool
a
is
random
that?
Twitter post. So I sent this one off to CBCS just because I was like, that's such a funny, weird, like random. Rodney Barnes is an amazing dude. He's writing like Mandalorian right now, and he's also just released a book called Monarch. But that guy is one guy that just loves his fans, and he's like on like if you just wrote Philadelphia and made a tweet, there's a good chance he'd like it.
Huh.
Like just because he's like, I mean, I think in Twitter you can like notify when words pop or whatever, right? So he probably checks that and does that. But he made a joke because he did I think he did a Captain America run where it was either his Lando run or a Captain American run, uh, where somebody hated it, and this fan kept tweeting how much he hated it, and he said how much he took that to heart, and like it really bummed him out. And he's like, "I still think about that guy, and I hope he's read some of my other stuff and enjoyed it at some point." But that was just like when we had him on the Comic Burrito, that was one of the things. Yeah, because this is like way before. I think I told him like, "Hey, one time you sent me some comics because of a random Twitter post I made, and that was pretty cool."
Well, it's kind of full circle when he came on the show, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's just a good dude that likes talking to people. He also just released a book, like Blackula. It was straight to graphic novel. He started his own like graphic
Ooh,
novel imprint. I think you can get that off Amazon or something. I don't
I'm
know.
gonna look that up. It's
But
based on the old movies, right?
yeah, that was like something that I think he tried to get like the property for when he started his own publishing company or whatever.
That sounds interesting. I'm gonna look that up after. I would definitely buy a Blackula comic.
Interesting. Get free
Number
books
8.
from Twitter. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah,
Right?
it's such a random post too. So this is one I told you that I had one that was with like a 2-story. And first off, this has to do with probably the coolest person that ever came on the Comic Burrito was
Oh.
Scott Snyder, and he did it
Ooh.
to rep Noctera #1. And this is a sketch cover that we had, or that I had commissioned Roscoe to do, and I had him do one full cover, and I didn't even realize when I sent him them, only one of them was a full one. Apparently a lot of companies don't do full, but yeah, he said I wanted to do an idea of like flashlight taggy for Noctera, so this is what he came up with, and
That is
easily one
really
of the
cool.
favorite sketch covers I have in my collection. But I got 3 from him, and this was one of them. Because that is one of the things I enjoy collecting is sketch covers, because I think they're kind of fun, and just seeing what artists will decide to put on
Well,
there.
they
But
are, and you always end up with a one of one, right?
yeah,
Like no one else has that, just you.
and even if he did something very similar to that, this one is technically different.
Right. And I don't know, it's just in Noctera, it's just such a great book.
Yeah, it's
I
been
love it. It's good fun.
it's just like a straight kind of like action story with some horror elements to it. I went to trade wait. I started trade waiting it just because it was one of those books that when I started falling behind on comics, I think I have like still like 6 issues to read on it. So I was like, I should probably cut that. Usually if I haven't read 6 issues of a comic, there's a reason for that. And maybe I don't have enough time to read all of these comics I'm
Or,
buying.
hear me out on this one. Have you considered trading a child?
For comic. So that I think I got behind on Noctera before I even had my second
Oh,
child, but
well.
there's not. Yeah, maybe
Val-
Just
not.
about the
Great
first one.
character.
I mean, just think.
I mean, I've considered it, but I haven't yet.
Good evening, Flash Ray videos. All right, number 9, sir.
So speaking of trading a child, earlier I talked about mind
Nice.
management. And here's another book. This is called Friday. And this is the book that I read when my son was getting born when we were in the hospital. So this is Ed Brubaker. This was like it was a web comic. And then he released it only in graphic novels. But this ended up coming out for free comic book day or local comic shop day. So I ended up grabbing it just because this was the book that I was reading in the hospital when my son was born. And I think that I like this book maybe more. I mean, it's a good book, but I think I like it more just due to the fact that it kind of like holds that memory. The book I was going to show in this place was it's like X-Men number 88. It's the first appearance of Random. Random's first name is Marshall, and that's the name of my son.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's random.
Super. But I just was looking for like superheroes named Marshall because I'm like, if there's a superhero, loosely a superhero named Cole, there has to be one named Marshall.
There was that video game, and the main character was Cole. The PlayStation one. I'm trying to remember it right now.
Oh yeah, the PlayStation one.
I mean, the main character in the Mortal Kombat movie's name was Cole, and that was weird. PlayStation game name. I mean, I probably, I don't know what game that is, but maybe I'll look it up later.
Yeah, it was. They were great games. No, they were pretty. They were really popular. I can't remember his name now
You know, that game on that system.
because I'm old, and every time I go to say something, it immediately leaves my mind.
All right, I just clicked
NHL
Google.
hockey.
The infamous game.
Infamous Cole McGrath. That's his
Yep.
name.
You got it. So I did not know that. And that makes
Yeah.
me now want to play the infamous games a little bit, which also those are loosely superhero based, right? He's kind of like a super.
Yeah, you develop your powers as you go through the game. A lot of fun. All right, number. Oh, wait, that was
number 9, I think.
yes. Okay, and number 10.
This is Steak Presents Jessamy. This is the comic burrito variant. As you can see, the dude in the middle, that's me. This was done by Ignacio DeMeglio. But yeah, we were able to commission a book. I thought this was cool. I'll show you the back cover too, because there's pretty cool. We did
I have that series set over here to the side to read. I have all 6 issues.
we did a little special comic burrito logo for the Halloweeny aspect, but that was the first variant that, well, the only variant the comic burrito that got done, but the first one that I got done. And I thought that that was pretty cool. It was just kind of a cool process to see. And working with somebody like Ignacio is awesome because Ignacio is an awesome dude.
I'll say Ignacio is just awesome himself.
Well, and it was funny. So the origin of this, why, and I'm having a hard time putting this board back, so I'm just going to do it and I'll figure that out later. The issue, so we were talking about it, he's like, do you guys have any ideas for what you want on this cover? And I was like, I don't really care, but if you could like put us on it, even if we're like decapitated, that'd be sweet. And he kind of ran with that as a joke and made us all decapitated on it because it seemed to make sense for the actual like thing that he was going for. So I don't know, it's always funny. It's always cool like kind of seeing how he works, like with the Coins of Judas one that me and Comic Book Poser got done with him. It was just kind of like we showed him all the other covers that were available for that, and he was like, I noticed no one did a cover with Judas, can we do one like that? And then it's kind of funny because everyone else just like sees it and knows about this book. They were like, oh, is that Judas? Did you guys come up with that idea? And I was like, no, he did it. He's a lot smarter than I am. I'm just like, hey dude, make good art. I like look.
Right? You draw, I'll looky.
And yeah, like I mean, it's just kind of funny in the process with him. I mean, I think it was a little bit harder when we were working with the three of us in Comic Burrito because we all kind of have like different tastes, especially in like color palettes. So then it just got to the point where I was like, what color should we try this? And then it got to the point where it's just like, why don't you just decide as the artist, because you're probably way better at it than we are. But you asked us and we were just like, I like this color, I like that color, I like this color, right? And then it was just kind of like, well, none of us agree, so just you do whatever you want to do.
Putting less restraints on the artist is generally going to get you a better result.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I've always done with sketch covers is just kind of say, like, if I go up to somebody at a con, here's like 5 covers that I think that you could do something cool on. Which one do you want to do? That one. Well, what do you want to do? What do you want on it? You figure it out. Like, so like if it's like X-Men, like my favorite X-Men is Nightcrawler, but if you want to do another one, do one because it'll probably be cooler than a Nightcrawler you don't want to do.
Yeah, I've gone to the summit. I usually, because I like to get sketch covers of various villains or something. If I'm hey, you know, here's some different stuff. If you got a Spider-Man or a Batman, say, okay, well, hey, whatever villain you'd like to do, except for like lately, I've been saying, well, except for Green Goblin, I have enough Green Goblin sketches. So you know, something. Anybody else?
I will do the Red Goblin.
No, Rob, with
We'll
your
do the Golden
mustache, you need
Goblet.
a Simon Bar Sinister.
Hey, the ones I've been having a lot of luck with lately has been getting sketch covers where I talk to artists. I find artists that do sci-fi stuff and being able to get things like, hey, you mentioned like Adam Strange, and they get like all super stoked and like want to do stuff, or Mars attacks or robots and stuff. And they get, yeah, and they're super pumped and move. I can move you to the front of the list.
I actually want to draw this one.
Exactly right. I'm not drawing the 45th Batman or
Oh, hey, can you draw Wolverine? What? Again?
Which I think is kind of funny because I probably have at least, I think like 12, maybe a little bit more than that, sketch covers. Batman's my favorite character, and I have 0 Batman sketch covers. I sent one to Roscoe to get done in Batman, and it ended up, I was just like, do whatever you want. And it was a Batman Turtles, and he made a uh, Bane Krang mashup, which is
Mhm.
like way cooler than having a Batman, but it's just like, yeah, like, but I have 3 Donatello ones.
Yeah, I have
Wow.
for Batman, same things. Like I got a Joker and I've got a Two Face, and I got one in the works that I'm trying to finagle to get a Scarecrow done, but you know, no Batman. I could get a Batman well.
Right.
That took a second to register. I think that was like a bottom line drink special
for
question. Is
for
that what
anybody who's like remember watching that Tick series, Batman well.
Oh,
No.
apparently I didn't understand. Maybe then.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back over here. You
I
guys
know what you're
continue.
saying, Rob.
Thank you.
I'm trying my
Sometimes you
best.
land them, and sometimes you fall off the beam.
Right.
I mean, it's probably just your audience, and by your audience, I mean literally just me.
Or I could be old.
All right, so I think we're on 11 with a story.
Okay, yeah. So this one's technically, I'm gonna cheat here too. So I've mentioned sketch covers, and I've got 2 technically that I'm going to show, but they're very, very similar. So one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing with my daughter, and that she's enjoyed too, which is fun, is that she loves going to like Comic Cons with me. And since kind of doing this channel, one of the things that I've noticed is that if you ask a Comic Con to, hey, can I get a press pass? Sometimes they let you in for free, and sometimes, if you have a 4-year-old kid, they get in free too. But there was a person there that was sketch cover, and she wanted to dress up as her favorite superhero, which is Owlette from PJ Masks. So I had this sketch cover of Radiant Red, and I went up to one of the guys that was doing sketch covers, and this is one he did of my daughter dressed up as Owlette. From that, it was one of the things we had at our comic shop that they had that was kind of like a mini Comic-Con thing. So it was this cool one of a kind thing where it's like, this is my daughter at that. But later on, we decided to go to Comic-Con, and I had her do her first cover,
Nice.
Oh
and we
wow.
got this signed up. So the only thing I don't like about this is the art on the back is a lot cooler than the art on the front, unfortunately. But sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. But yeah, this is a book that I actually got like a few weeks ago. I've sent a few people that on Instagram, but this is a book I haven't even showed off on my channel yet. So this is a special
Ooh,
moment. So
it's a
every time we
debut.
go to a Comic-Con, I take her over to CBCS. I let her pick out one of the random covers that we have. She does a little drawing, we submit it to them, and they're usually pretty nice about it. The last time, I think one of the guys was super hungover and didn't really want to deal with us, but hey, that's what you get for going to a Comic-Con on a Sunday, I guess. But I think that's pretty cool, and I just like to bring that up because I think a lot of people are like, that seems like it would be something that's so hard, where it's like, I think technically my daughter probably could just draw on it, and I could bring it to him and say, hey, my daughter's name is Hazel Verhagen, and she drew this at home. But I think she just kind of enjoys going there and doing it there. People come up and are like, what are you doing? Like, oh, what's Wonder Woman doing making a comic book over here?
Yeah, if you want to get it witnessed, you can. But if you want to send it in, just get an art label with no signature verification or anything. You could do that. Same thing as you can, with the exception of CGC, all 3 of the others I know I've seen examples where people have done that, send stuff in, and have their kids' stuffs encapsulated, and it just gets an art label. There's no signature verification or anything because
So they wouldn't put like sketch by person's name.
CBCS, I'm not sure if they would or wouldn't. I know that I've seen people do it with PGX and EGS. I think are a little bit more lenient on that, and perhaps would.
So my daughter's name is Hazel, so this obviously is an H, and that's an H. When I was
Right,
like, try and write your name, because she sort of knows, and it says a witness signature, her name with sketch. So like, I guess they give it that,
right,
but
because
yeah,
because it's witnessed. It's
yeah.
doesn't matter.
But
Yeah.
it's just funny that it's witness signature when there's loosely not a signature there. It's just art, but
Well, signature.
yeah,
If I sign something, it doesn't look like my name.
yeah.
It just happens to be my mark that I place. It's slightly better than an X, and it is what it is.
The only bummer with that order is that I also took some of those comic burrito variants and I signed them and sent them in just so that they could witness my signature. Because I think then it just gets in the database and maybe somebody else, like I could technically send one in and maybe they'd verify it. But I don't even know how that works or really care. But I just
Oh,
felt like
that's
That's
something.
great
cool
though.
for
I
her
tried
though.
to
So
get some
that's
of my kids' art done because my youngest has always been artistic and stuff, and I tried to get them to do cover for me one time, and they just looked at me and said, "I do digital art, Dad. How am I going to get that onto your comic?" I said, "Well, you could use a pencil and paper. You used to, Dad,
Do you know how hard it is to erase non-digital lines?
right?" So, well, so now I'm
uh,
forced. Only art I have is like stuff from when my child was like your kids' ages and stuff.
Yeah,
Where
and that's the thing. I just figure, for this point in time, she
where
likes her
you can
dad.
hang them up next to you and go, "Oh, look at that! My kid was adorable once."
Yeah, and she still likes me, which is sort of nice, right? So,
Yeah,
she'll still
you're
go to
lucky.
these
You're
things.
at the age where your kid still thinks you're cool.
Yeah. She has randomly said like, "I don't like you." And that was a really hurtful moment in my life. I never
Yeah,
knew a
but you were
3-year-old.
probably taking something away or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Instead,
just
my
told her.
kid doesn't communicate with me except to say, "Oh, hey, my food account at the university is low. Can you send me money?"
Yeah, I just was like, "You can't have ice cream for breakfast."
I
I
don't
hate
like.
you, Dad.
Yeah, I hate you. Yeah, really, on the scale of things in life, kid, you're gonna find out that's not a hateable
Yeah,
offense. But you chalk yourself up.
yeah. But you made me cry in the bathroom, so I guess that's what's happening today.
It's all right. You'll toughen up and become callous like myself and try to get people to pawn their kids off in
Yeah.
exchange for comic books.
so I'm just the opposite. My son says something I don't like. I was like, look, dude, when you can provide for your own self, you let me know. But until then, when I'm paying for everything, it's tough luck, dude. If I tell you that needs to be picked up or clean, it better get done. You can be as mad as you want. Don't be disrespectful, because there's absolutely no call for it. You don't want for anything.
Yeah.
See, I still remember vividly my dad always used to say was, "Look, you may be faster than me, but I know where you sleep." Son of a gun. He's got
Vengeance.
me.
Dad, I'm not gonna sleep anymore. I'll show you.
Right. Oh goodness. Oh, don't worry, Cole. You'll toughen up. It gets there.
Oh yeah, I mean it was just the first time, and you're like, I was not prepared for that on a Saturday morning at 8 in the morning.
It'll happen. You'll go again. Man, this
Yeah,
is happening a lot with you lately. Are
yeah,
you sure you're okay?
yeah. Maybe you need a hug. I think it's hug time.
In public. Well, I'm
Yeah.
wearing the dress.
While I
And
hug you in public.
it's funny because the funny thing about kids, Cole, is just their moods change like within seconds. Like they'll be mad at you for like 1 second, and then 4 minutes later, when they're hungry, hey, Dad, what's for dinner?
Oh yeah. Well, or the other night, my friend's or my wife's friend's husband was out of town, so she went to like hang out with her, and they have like a hot tub or whatever. My daughter's like sitting there, and we were having such a fun night, just watching a movie, eating popcorn, doing whatever. And I was like, "Hey, dude, it's time for bed, so let's go to bed. I'm gonna quick grab some water. We'll go upstairs, whatever." And in the time that it took me to get a glass of water, she started crying and saying she missed mom, and I was like, "Whoa, what happened?" I'm just, dude, we're having a good time. It's okay. We can go to bed. Mom will be here when you wake up.
She start
Right.
beating with a pot over your head, saying, "Not the mama."
Like, I do know that joke. I had the soundtrack to that, and there was like the Not the Mama song on it. I used to listen to that a lot. My parents were not a fan,
I
but
have
they
never
bought it
heard of
for
this
me.
song.
It's from the Dinosaurs TV show.
Oh,
Yeah, the
It
little
was
baby used
very
to say "not
short-lived.
the mama" and beat
Yeah.
the
I'm pretty
dad with
sure
the.
there's a comic of it.
Yeah, yeah.
probably because they made a comic out of the most random stuff back then.
Yeah, I mean, like Dragon Ball Z and Ren and Stimpy. Those are things that I collect 'cause those are what I
World of
liked as a kid.
Warcraft.
Yeah, and World of Warcraft and Doom. And by Doom, why do I keep saying Doom when it's Diablo?
Doom was a better game.
Was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I
I mean, there's
don't
a
know.
I didn't play either one. I played Wolfenstein 3D, and then I got into Star Wars games, and that was it.
Diablo's better than Doom.
yeah, I would probably agree.
My kid would
I
disagree.
mean,
My kid loves Doom. He plays it on every single system he has.
weird. They still make that game?
Oh yeah, he just played the new one that came out last year. He's beat it like 6, 7 times already. Now he's going for like whatever the Berserker Fury you can't pass one step level and difficulty
Classics
he's
never die,
doing.
Cole. My,
Yeah.
my wife still plays Civilization. I'm like, oh really? They still make that game?
I'm pretty sure my boss is a big Civilization fan.
I'm just. Then I sit there and I go on my thing. I go play my Axis and Allies emulator.
They make that? That's a thing they
Yes.
make? Can I play you in it?
I don't know if it's on. Yeah, I think it's online. Yeah, probably.
Did you just
'Cause
become best friends?
I had I had a neighbor that loved that game, and he was like, so this was a weird friendship. He was like 4 years older than me. He didn't have friends, but I like Star Wars, and he liked Star Wars. So he was like, "Hey, I can drive, and I got tickets to these new re-releases of Star Wars. Want to go with me?" And I was like, "Mom, can I go with this guy next door?" And they're like, "Sure." So, but he would babysit me sometimes, and we'd play Axis and Allies. But that game took so long
Oh
to
yeah,
play.
it did. Axis
So
and Allies and Panzer Blitz and
So it's like, oh, your parents are coming home in 20 minutes. Now we're going to have to key all the locations of where all the pieces are so that when I babysit you next time, we can put them back in their place and continue up where we were last time.
huge games of Risk that would go on for freaking
No,
hours
I
and
love
hours.
Risk.
Yeah. But I felt like Risk was easier for
It
people to
was.
just like,
It's significantly easier because Axis and Allies, depending on which version you were in, it could go. It could become very complicated. And there's online versions now that you can play, and they're much simplified.
Plus, I always love chess.
Let's play
also a
chess.
classic.
Sister,
I
let's play
learned
chess.
when I was really young. A teacher taught me. I think when I was like 5 or 6, and I always played it after that.
Yeah, we still have a spec pick to get to, don't we?
We
I think
do.
we do.
Phenomenal.
I mean, if you guys would just stop derailing the damn show, I don't know what your problems are.
Try to make it entertaining, Gary.
Right?
This is
yes,
this is
the Axis and Allies conversation.
people love Axis and Allies. You just
We-
don't know about it.
Look,
There you
go.
within the comic community, there's a hardcore set of gaming nerds, and to them, they're
It's true.
soaking this up, going like, "Yes, Axis and Allies, yes."
And for anyone watching on the rewind, we're all just busting each other's balls. So
It's a strong group that's still smaller than the group that's going. Why don't you guys talk about it like a real game, like Dungeons and Dragons? You freaking lamos.
I mean, I like that one too. But this is probably a terrible spec pick. It's technically not even really like something that it's sort of already been a spec pick at some point because this person has made it into the animated world already. But I think with the way that James Gunn is going, this person is going to maybe make it into the real world. They technically have been in the book, but only through a newspaper clipping. And that's Kite Man. And his first appearance is in this issue of Batman. It is really beat up. It is issue 133. So Tom King wrote Batman, and he had that issue where Kite Man comes through a window and goes, "Kite Man, hell yeah," and flies out it again. And I go, that is the dopest thing I've ever read in a comic book ever right now. I don't even know what a Kite Man is. Google Kite Man's first appearance. It's this issue. I paid $15 for this, and it is a gross copy. But now it's probably worth more than that. It's got a stain here. There's some like love. Everything about it's ruined over here, but it's mostly complete. And it's also the second appearance of Batmite, maybe.
No, there you go.
And you know,
An early
it's
Batwoman too. So
Who's also Batmite was referenced in the Peacemaker show with Kite Man.
I was gonna say, and with James Gunn, it is a legit spec because you don't know what'll pop up.
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean, well, so in Peacemaker, there's an article where it says like Peacemaker defeats the Kite Man or something like that. It's just it's sitting in a newspaper in his room or whatever. But yeah, that Kite Man was sweet. But I mean, yeah, I mean, Tom King took a character that no one loved and made a beautiful story about them. That
well, not only is he great in the animated series, but if you're reading the comic books, the Harley Quinn series of comic books that not the main series, but that are tied to the animated
oh yeah,
universe, that are kind of in between season stuff. Mm, perfect, beautiful
I
stuff.
I read the first issue of that because it came straight to digital, and I should probably maybe recheck it out. I feel like that's one of those books that is hard for me to read because it feels like the show's so good, and I don't think I read it in my head like the show performs, or maybe I just
Oh,
didn't
really?
like it as much. But you're saying you liked it, right?
I love it because it's like the in between. It's
Yeah.
the in between stuff that goes on in between the seasons, and they like when they go from season one to season two. If you read the Kill Bang whatever tour, that one fills in some of the stuff, and then there's another series that then fills in between two and three and stuff. It's great. Although it's a little bit weird when you think about it, it's an adult oriented comic when you pick up a DC comic, and I swear Harley and Ivy do it so much throughout that book. It is absolutely insane. I'm
I
not
have to
complaining.
address
I'm
One
just
Shot
saying
Comics.
3 to 4 times in a single issue
Really?
is impressive sometimes. Yeah. The
So
stamina isn't better to me, that's for sure.
so yes, that is a Duke Nukem thing,
Yes.
but that was taken from They Live and then put into the game
Rowdy
Duke
Roddy
Nukem.
Piper, yep.
Yeah, it was. Yep. And they also did some ashisms in that game too from the Evil Dead. But
Yep. The
So
gang, baby.
Uh, Scott Vaughn had Bueller on his show yesterday, and apparently Bueller was going wild. And somebody was like, "You should check Bueller out when he was on Comic Gories on the Boy Who Has Seven's channel." And I went back and did it, and Bueller shows up and goes, "I feel like chewing bubblegum and kicking ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." And that's how he started the show, and it's pretty funny. So I don't know if you guys ever rewatch episodes of Comic Gories, but that is a pretty funny one to go back. It's him, Comic Tom, Gem Mint, and Rock and Robbie. So a pretty big deal of like YouTube dudes going at it. And Gem Mint only shows off omnibuses.
right. Well, I mean, that was kind of like the big start of his channel was just Omnis.
Yeah. And this probably was an episode from maybe 2 years ago, even at this point.
There you go.
Right. So no, so those were great books. I think Kite Man was fun. I've never actually seen that cover, Cole, and that cover had a lot going on.
It does. It's weird. All the old Batman covers, though, are like, let's put word balloons on a cover because people want that. It's
Well, I get
comics.
back to who's the imposter Batgirl or what's she supposed to be?
That's
That
Batwoman.
actually is the original Batwoman.
Oh,
So
okay.
there was a Batwoman and a Batgirl before the Batwoman and Batgirl that you know today in
Right
Yeah.
before
comics.
Barbara Gordon.
Interestingly enough, her last name is Kane, same as Batwoman
Cassandra
today, but
Cain or Kane.
unrelated. Really,
And
so
I
they were
think she married Batman in issue 129, or they're
yeah, so
getting married.
they were in
Cover.
Batwoman and Batgirl were introduced in the 50s because people were afraid that Batman and Robin might be misconstrued as gay, and we could not potentially have such a thing going on. Therefore, Batwoman and Batgirl were introduced as love interests for to alleviate that.
Hmm.
I should probably go and read this issue tonight because I have DC
Well,
Limited just to see how weird it is.
and I knew
Oh,
that there was
that
a
era is a completely different style of Batman than if you like Batman today. You just go, what is this? Is you just got to kind of go into it almost thinking like Batman 66,
Yeah,
because it's not not quite the same thing, but it's just a lot different,
product of its
camp,
time.
yeah,
and yeah,
and like there's issues
lighthearted.
where he just fights big spiders, right?
It's just he's not the Dark Knight. Okay, he's just a guy with they're just happy, bubbly, go lucky guys.
Now,
Yeah.
I do have a question, Rob. That particular Batwoman, I knew she existed. I just didn't know that. I thought she was only in one comic. I didn't know that she appeared in
No,
multiple.
no, she was in
Did they
multiple
ever
issues.
bring her back for any of the modern stuff, or did she just die away in the Silver Age and they never
I,
did anything
you
with her
know,
again?
I want to say I remember recently there was something where her character showed up for something, but I can't. But I don't want to say for certain because I don't know. I'd have to. Somebody else may know, but I could have sworn there was something not too long ago that she came about or was in referenced or something. DC does weird things. I mean,
Her name was
Well, that's why I'm
Kath.
getting Danger Street because they brought Lady Cop back from her one issue.
Uh,
well,
so she was in Batman 66, issue number 2. So that's slightly recent, I guess.
yeah, it's a
Oh,
The
modern film.
Kingdom Planet Krypton. She was in that. Krypton? I don't know. I said it weird. Which would have been like, what, 2000s ish? That's around the time of, uh, what's that book they just did on the Comic Vikings read along?
Hmm. Oh yeah, Kingdom Come.
Yeah, it's right around that time.
Yeah, well there you are. Phenomenal books, Cole.
Hey, thanks.
absolutely.
I
And,
tried to make
and
it as weird as possible, so I hope
no,
that
but that's what this show's about. It's just how each collector is different and just getting a peek inside. That's what makes it fun. But we'll go around the horn here. We'll see what's coming around. So Rob, you first. What's coming up for you, sir?
Thursday there's I got some slabs, a couple slabs that are unboxed, a couple gifts, a couple commit submissions, one super big, massive key
how
that will be
massive.
unboxed on Thursday. Pardon?
How
It's
massive.
super big and massive.
It's a key. It's a hugely significant DC key,
More significant than the first Kite Man.
tremendously
Yeah.
so.
I think you blew the DC load here tonight, Cole. I don't think I've got
Uh,
anything to compare with Kite Man.
yeah. Then of course Saturday we have only slabs. Chris and I are going to be joined by Comic Gains team. Uh, maybe the team, maybe just one. I'm not sure yet. It's still in flux, but we will have at least one member of Comic Gains, if not more, on the channel this Saturday for only slabs.
Nice. All right, coming up this Thursday is not in the hot seat. We're going to have a bonus episode of the 1011 with Ben Parker. So, Ben Parker Comics. So, and
Autohoff stellar appearance on only slabs last
correct.
week.
And just a good dude. You see him mostly on Instagram, but Ben's a great part of our community and just an awesome gentleman all around. And then the following Tuesday, we have Tony from Comiverse on the 1011 showing his books.
Nice.
Fresh from his appearance on In the Hot Seat last week. So a lot of good stuff coming up. Cole, what's coming up for you, sir?
This Friday, I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated comics. I'll be joined by DJ Links to hear what his most anticipated comic for the week is going to be. On Monday, I've got some CBCS labs that have been sitting in a box for 2 weeks. I'm probably going to open those and have a video for that on Monday. Bearded Comic Bro and I are probably going to put out a comic challenge within the next 4 to 5 days. And next Tuesday, I think Blake and I are going to review a book called Do a Power Bomb because apparently the trade for that comes out next week, Wednesday.
Oh. See, that's what I missed when it first came out. So I may have to get the trade on that and read it because I've heard so much good stuff about it.
It's pretty solid. I mean, I think it's a great book, and I know that people that don't like wrestling also like it. But Daniel Warren Johnson is kind of a person that I think is made a name for himself as a pretty solid writer. And I mean, if you like professional wrestling at all, I think it's definitely a solid book. And if you know of it enough, it's good. I don't think you have to be a wrestling fan to like it, though.
But can you be?
Nice.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, if you are a wrestling fan, it helps way more.
Awesome.
All right, nice. And so I want to thank everyone that joined us in the chat. We had a great chat, nice and rolling. A good group of watchers. Thank you so
Sure.
much for coming out to support the show, to support my co-host, myself, and our guest tonight. All links are in the description below. So if you're not subbed up to somebody here and you're watching this on Rewind, please go sub up these fine gentlemen. They have fun content, great content. And just a great
Can,
community. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Cole.
can I
Appreciate
make
you
one
guys.
PSA before you log us off here?
Absolutely.
So, public service announcement, folks. Okay, when shipping comics, do not bend in a paper manila envelope. Is not how you ship comics,
It should say bend aggressively,
especially Golden Age comics
right?
that cost several $100s. This person is on my hate list.
Well, hopefully it turned out okay.
I hope so too. It doesn't look too bad, but those are usually the worst. The ones that look really bad that somehow miraculously come out okay are great, and the ones that come out looking not too bad are usually the ones that get super jacked.
Right. Luckily, usually if I get a book that's something, at least usually it's in a box. But I've had a few shipped in a bubble envelope. You're like, why?
Or one of these.
Yeah,
I mean, like, what is with people?
I would assume most of these people are selling comics that they don't technically know about comics.
I
That
do
would
way.
the
think it.
research.
Yeah, I mean, come
You're
on.
selling something to another person.
Thank you, KBDM. I know better. I watched your video. That's right. If you don't know, there's a video on my channel. It tells you that you're packing your books wrong and how to do it.
That's right. Rob is the shipping guru. Well,
Whoa,
you do ship.
don't say
Like
that around
how many
Trev.
packages do you ship a week, Rob?
I ship
On average,
minimum 2, but I'm generally I probably ship 3 to 4 books packages with books in them a week. Yeah.
That's a lot less than I assumed you were going to say.
Well, I'm not
right?
a big seller, right? So
I see. Like Rhino's comics, he's shipping like dozens a week, and his stuff is just packed so well. Like nothing's gonna happen to that book on the way to you. Plug for Rhino's comics, who
there
just
you go.
has a
Next,
lot of fun.
if I'm ever in the area,
Oh well, they are also on Whatnot. So
well, I'm not.
right, it because Whatnot's a dangerous app.
Well,
It
that
really is.
yeah, I have issues with
Woo,
it.
clicky.
Anyways, all right. Sorry, Gary. I interrupted your
No,
sign off now, and
you're fine. All right,
And
here we
now we're
are.
here for another hour, so
right.
strap in, folks.
All right, guys, let's grab a drink. Kick back. Hey, what about that? What I don't know what
This
sports
is
team.
not
How
banter.
about that XFL?
All right, Rob, thank you again. Cole, thank you again. Thank you for coming on, but I appreciate it. Chat, once again, thank you. And all of you guys on the rewind, we appreciate you watching and checking us out.
Except
And
for
until
you
next
right
time,
there. You're the one person we don't care about. All the
right?
rest of you, though, you're okay.
And until next time, keep it casual.